So I think it's absolutely critical that the majority of Americans realize the place where we actually are right now. You're going to have to put away your bias and your ego and your desire to see your side win. Um, all of that needs to be dead before you engage this topic so you can see with clarity. That's the main component in all of it. And what we're really talking about here is the smart city agenda. From COVID would be most recognizable, but COVID forward, right? This will be the acronym COVID itself, Certificate of Vaccination Identification 19, which was patented in 2015, and 19 simply stood for AI. One is the first letter of the alphabet, being A. 9 is the ninth letter of the alphabet, being I. So what I'm going to do for you is put this entire thing together in a framework, and I'm going to leave you a list at the bottom of this article or video that you can research these things for yourself, and make everyone near you aware. If you don't want to share this video, I would prefer you share the video where you can, get people to watch it. It will be very strictly monitored or restricted, or the censorship stuff is way off the charts. So I deal with it regularly and pretty hardcore. So I don't know how much traction all this is going to get. All of that being said, I'll start in on smart. So smart cities, emails. Let's see what else we have here. So these are the emails that I get. I set up my emails to send me all relevant topics in regards to anything going on in the world right now that I find relevant. And I am tapped into the vein of it all for probably 6 years now. I would say about 5 years ago, where I started getting kicked off of social media platforms, was exactly when I started talking about smart city infrastructure, the ability to read people's minds, graphene's role in vaccines or any other consumable product. So I will jump into the streetlight situation probably later. I will pause these as I go and try to move. I'm just familiarizing myself with my new setup here, so please bear with me. Now, we don't get a very clear and concise elaboration on what these things are when we use sites like Wikipedia, for instance. So if we're going to tell this story as it is factually evolving, we're going to have to use their methods of information transportation. Okay, so I'm using Wikipedia right now. A lot of people would say you can't trust that. It's simply a description of what is DARPA. Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency is a research and development agency of the United States Department of Defense. This is your DoD, responsible for the development of emerging technologies for use by the military, originally known as the Advanced Research Projects Agency, ARPA. The agency was created on February 7, 1958 by Dwight D. Eisenhower in response to the Soviets' launch of Sputnik 1 in 1957. By collaborating with academia, industry, and government partners, DARPA formulates and executes research and development projects to expand the frontiers of technology and science, often beyond immediate U.S. military requirements. Beyond, meaning anything it wants to do. The name of the organization first changed from its founding name, ARPA, to DARPA in March 1972, changing back to ARPA in February of 1993, then reverted back to DARPA in March of 1996. So defense is their big excuse on why they do what they do everywhere they do it. Um, the Economist has called DARPA the agency that shaped the modern world with technologies such as Moderna's COVID-19 vaccine, weather satellites, GPS drones, stealth technology, voice interfaces, personal computer, and the internet on the list of innovations for which DARPA can claim at least partial credit. Its track record of success has inspired governments around the world to launch similar research and development agencies. DARPA is independent of other military research and development and reports directly to Senior Department of Defense Management. DARPA comprises about 220 government employees in 6 technical offices, including nearly 100 program managers who together oversee about 250 research and development programs. Stephen Winchell is the current director. So I will give you a brief overview. I apologize, I'm in bed right now, and this is what I do at nighttime. So I have my shirt off. All right, so overview of ARPANET. ARPANET, established in 1969 by the Advanced Research Projects Agency, now DARPA, was the first widespread packet switch network. It played a crucial role in the development of modern internet by implementing the TCP IP protocol suite. Think of your internet every time you get onto something. There is a transaction that happens there directly identifying the user. This is the beginning of the digital twin. Everything done on the internet was tagged and traced. Every bit of it has been trackable from the very start. Key features: packet switching. Definition: method of data transmission where messages are broken into packets and sent independently across the network. Importance: this approach allowed for a more efficient use of network resources and increased reliability, as the failure of one node would not disrupt the entire network. So one node will be a very important word for you to remember forever. You are a node in the smart city agenda. Your digital twin is a node in the digital framework for that system. So it is to monitor and modulate all things in conjunction with each other and create a desired outcome. That's what all of this from its inception has always been about. TCP and IP protocol suite. Implementation. ARPANET was one of the first networks to use the TCP IP protocol, which became the standard for internet communication. Transition. On January 1st of 1983, TCP IP replaced the earlier network control protocol used by ARPANET. So this is where your internet comes from. This is the beginning of the internet. It was created by DARPA, by this government agency, always working in the shadows, creating the direction of the flow of human interactivity in the technological landscape, basically. Okay. So historical context, purpose and development. Initial goals: ARPANET aimed to connect computers at various research institutions to facilitate resource sharing and communication, particularly in the context of Cold War military concerns. Again, they drive some non-existent war into your face, terrify you with it. Okay, it makes sense. Yes, we justify it. I'm definitely voting for the guy that's on board with it. Right? That's the way that our brains work. That's how it's always been. We watch the news, we take in the stimuli, and we act on that thing that we know, that limited view of whatever that thing is. Okay? This is our brains. This is all psychological. Not that you don't know that, right? But this is how it's all worked from the start. So again, you got to remove you, identify what's really happening here. And by the time I get to the end of this, you'll see clearly what the graphene stuff, the internet stuff, the lighting stuff, the smart city infrastructure, the car wash things, right? You'll see what all of these mean. First connection, first successful message was sent on October 29th of 1969 between UCLA and the Stanford Research Institute. Expansion and decommissioning, growth by the early 1980s, ARPANET had expanded significantly, connecting numerous universities and research facilities. Decommissioning, the network was formally decommissioned in 1990, paving the way for the commercialization and expansion of the internet. So they created the monster and they wanted to let it run on its own. Doesn't mean people weren't still monitoring and tracking how it all worked. So they used it for in a way to make it evolve. We made it evolve for them though, once they planted it into world business or world communication. So, ARPANET's innovations and networking and communication protocols laid the foundation for the internet as we know it today, influencing countless technologies and applications that followed. Okay. How long has GPS been a thing? This is the next important step in understanding what's going on here. Initial adoption and use, the U.S. Department of Defense began developing satellite navigation in the 1960s with the transit system, primarily for Navy submarines to obtain position fixes. This rudimentary system required hours between position updates and lacked the precision needed for many military operations. The true revolution came with the Navstar Global Positioning System, GPS, which began development in 1973 specifically for military use. The system became operational with 24 satellites in 1993. Again, reference the previous portion I was reading to you, 1993. DARPA, again, though earlier versions were used during Operation Desert Storm in 1991. Another critical feature that you guys would have to understand is Regina Dugan's role in all of this. She worked for Google on GPS tracking with Google for your everyday device utilization. Everything that you use, your phone, were you in that store? Yes, I was in that store at blah, blah, blah time, right? So they were using the phones to learn the way that you move. Regina Dugan. Again, she goes to Facebook. She came from DARPA, moved to Google, went to Facebook, and then started her own thing. After she went back somewhere after. I don't remember which one. But so initially, GPS featured two service levels: precise positioning service for military users and standard positioning service for civilians, with intentional degradation called selective availability, limiting civilian accuracy to about 100 meters. The Cargill conflict in 1999 demonstrated the tactical advantages of GPS when U.S. military GPS receivers gave Pakistan significant battlefield advantages, prompting India to accelerate its own GNSS development efforts. Okay, so this is a military technology that you carry around in your pocket that is tracking and tracing everything you do with pinpoint accuracy now. They're talking about 100 meters. It's down to the location of your center of your forehead now. As you watch the Dr. James Giordano videos, you will learn that that accuracy could not be achieved without, it's not about the satellites. It's about the smart network. They don't need the satellites. The smart network does everything that he's talking about all the time, using your phone. You constantly have that thing pointed at your head. Your body is a radar system, identifier, or node on its own. This is what they've always been using aluminum for with radar signals. So I can get into that. Okay, so the evolution is what I'm working on here. By the time we get to the end, it's going to be fully understandable. Digestible, microelectromechanical systems. The timeline. For many years, beginning in 1994, DARPA provided substantial funding in the then emergent arena of microelectrical and mechanical systems. better known as MEMS. With lineage in microelectronics technology, MEMS researchers cleverly adapted standard semiconductor fabrication methods to fabricate miniature mechanical structures such as flexible membranes, cantilevers, and even trains of interdigitated gears, and integrated these with electronics to create a menagerie of MEMS systems. Among the target deliverables for the DoD were inertial navigation devices for smartening up weapons and tracking soldiers, miniaturized laboratories on a chip for such uses as detecting biological weapons in the field, and optical switches and displays. DARPA's patient support is widely credited with adding consequential momentum to the field of MEMS, which since has blossomed into a multi-billion-dollar market in the military and civilian sectors. So this is a key to literally everything happening in the world right now. That name you need to remember. This is a submittal to the House of Representatives, so they know what is being done for sure, right? Okay, so this is her words. She's got the very dressed up method of delivering these words in I'll just read. It is said that vision without execution is daydreaming. There is a time and a place for daydreaming, but it is not at DARPA. DARPA is not the place of dreamlike musings or fantasies, not a place for self-indulging in wishes and hopes. DARPA is a place of doing, a place where vision is paired with execution, where new things are imagined and then turned to reality. Where doing is as powerful a force as thinking, and where it is commonplace for something once deemed impossible to become improbable and then inevitable. It is a place where the nation's best scientists and engineers go to serve a purpose greater than self. Together, they form the nation's army of techno geeks with vision, and they make it so. They stand on a 50-year history of people who changed the world. This is literal, changing the world. That's what they're in the process of doing right now. Smart everything. So I'm going to skip through a couple of these until I find you something that is extremely relevant to the way things are going right now. Give me one sec. Now we're going to run into the situation in Afghanistan. Why were we there for so long? We were there to disarm any surrounding enemies that have been completely disarmed, both politically and militarily. Anybody that surrounded Israel as a country. So this is what the entire conspiracy theory behind 9/11 being an inside job was all about. Okay, so DARPA's support to ongoing operations. In April 2010, shortly after last year's testimony, DARPA stood up Task Force JDOT. It was motivated by a trip to Afghanistan, which revealed that many operators regarded DARPA as the organization to call when they believed they had a 5 to 10 year problem to solve. It seemed clear that many operators did not believe DARPA was in the fight with them. We were determined to change both the perception and the reality of that belief, because when the country is at war and we can contribute, it is our duty to do so. Indeed, the agency's participation in ongoing conflicts dates back to the Vietnam War. So, to give you some context here, this is JDOT, the Joint Chiefs of Staff, basically, right? So, purpose, this publication has been prepared under the direction of the Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. It sets forth joint doctrine to govern the activities and performance of the armed forces of the United States in joint operations and it provides considerations for military interaction with governmental and non-governmental agencies. Very important. NGOs are why we are where we are in our country right now, in every world country. So, multinational forces and other interorganizational partners. It provides military guidance for the exercise of authority by combatant commanders and other joint force commanders, and prescribes joint doctrine for operations and training. It provides military guidance for use by the armed forces in preparing and executing their plans and orders. It is not the intent of the publication to restrict the authority of the JFC from organizing the force and executing the mission in a manner the JFC deems most appropriate to ensure unity of effort in the accomplishment of objectives. So you've got to get to a place where you can say, what are those objectives? We want a fully compliant population that will never ask questions about anything ever again. They're to be farmed, basically, is what we're getting, like always. Money, Federal Reserve, you are the farm animal. You are here to produce. If you don't, you become irrelevant in society, right? Not here to enjoy your life. That's not what you're here for, to enjoy your life. Now I'm back to the DARPA paper by Regina Dugan. Other activities, let's see, this is DARPA personnel. So again, elaborating on the Joint Chiefs of Staff, right? Other activities included the fielding of a wide area, high definition, off nadar light detection and ranging LiDAR collection system to provide much needed 3D map data. LiDAR systems use light to image objects in the same way that radar systems use radio waves. Sensitivity at the photon counting level matters to operations. DARPA High Altitude LiDAR Operational Experiment, called HALO system, was 5 years in the making. It incorporates advances in shortwave infrared sensitive material properties that permitted advanced photon counting detector arrays so sensitive that it is now possible to make range measurements with fewer than 10 photons received versus tens of thousands of photons. As is true with your camera, increased sensitivity means that an image can be captured more quickly. The shutter has to be open for less time, and less light is required to capture an image. Less time and lower power translate to higher collection rates at larger standoff. HALO can collect data at a rate that is more than 10 times faster than state-of-the-art systems or 100 times faster than conventional systems. At full operational capacity, this means that HALO system can map 50% of Afghanistan in 90 days. State-of-the-art deployed systems would have required 3 years to accomplish the same task, and more conventional systems would have required 30 years. So I want you to understand what that is. That's a critical component in the way this whole thing has evolved with graphene and photon management or recognition. Photons are like light-based electrons. So they're little miniature packets of information. Now we're talking about an everyday household device. In the way that you operate over the course of your day, your telephone is brought out to take a picture, to scan a QR code, to make videos or whatever, right? So why is all of that information and all of that technology dumped onto South Korea? What does South Korea have to do with American-made goods or American-used consumable goods? Why can't we make this kind of stuff here? DARPA, where they have the technology for it. They're the first in the whole line of that technology to use it, right? Bring it up, bring it out, show the world. Well, now you've got Samsung and these other technology companies like Apple have all this technology. So this is where that connection between the World Economic Forum and government and contract negotiations between financiers and governmental or non-governmental organizations. This is that transaction. This is one of them. So why do we build phones there? Because there are no Americans to monitor the process. Or why are there infrared cameras in our phones? Right? So Samsung unveils metal lens camera for a new era of Galaxy devices. That was in 2025, but they've been using them for more than 5 or 6 years already. Samsung demonstrated metal lens, just like Facebook and Meta has the new sunglasses, whatever they're called. It's an imaging system with infrared capabilities. Okay. Samsung demonstrated metal lens camera technology that aims to reduce the weight of XR devices and the height of smartphone camera bumps. This tech is a thing of the future that teases our next phone may wipe out the bulky camera design. Utilizing the metal lens tech, Samsung and POSTECH researchers developed an ultra-compact infrared eye camera for XR devices. Metal lens reduces the thickness by 20% from 2 millimeters to 1.6 millimeters over refractive lens cameras. In addition, the metal lens integrated camera demonstrated accurate pupil tracking and iris pattern recognition with a wide 120-degree field of view and improved modulation transfer function performance from 50 to 72%. Metal lens is a newly discovered technology that could be featured in future Samsung devices. The company continues to make its gadgets more practical. Metal lens will help Galaxy phones to be lighter and sleeker than ever, not to mention capable of picking up the retinal scan of your eye. Now we have, in this stream of following the vein of technology, DARPA's Urban Challenge. It was autonomous vehicles thing that they did, but these guys are critical. It's the International Electrical Engineers something. So let's just see what this was all about. And this was around 2007. It actually was initiated in 2005. So autonomous vehicles complete DARPA Urban Challenge. 6 of 11 autonomous vehicles finished 90-kilometer course with no major accidents. Imagine a typical California suburb of one-story stucco homes, curving roads, and cul-de-sacs, but abandoned. The lawns and plants dried up, the windows broken, the rooms empty. Add dozens of identical Ford Tauruses driven by stunt drivers in endless loops through 16 kilometers of vacant streets, stopping at stop signs, passing each other over and over. Then throw in 11 robot cars and SUVs. No drivers, just software controlling their stops and starts. Merging, passing, and parking. Eerily well-behaved, the autonomous vehicles join the intricate dance, blending in with the Tauruses, obeying all California traffic laws, and move through the silent landscape. Was it fantasy or setting for a zombie movie? Neither. It was the DARPA Urban Challenge, a competition put on by the Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency of the United States Department of Defense, to learn whether autonomous vehicles could maneuver through urban and suburban settings amidst unpredictable traffic. Those dozens of Tauruses were driven by professionals, protected by racing helmets and NASCAR quality roll cages, who knew how to get out of potential accidents, but the robot cars also had to play well with one another. 89 teams had applied to take part in the competition. DARPA accepted 35 of them. But before heading out, contenders were subjected to a week of individual testing. Each robot had to show that it could merge into traffic, negotiate a road, and stop at a sign, and so forth. Of the 35, only 11 made the cut. The DARPA Urban Challenge took place at the former George Air Force Base in California's high desert. Closed in the early 1990s, it's now the Southern California Logistics Airport, and much of the suburban course was actually the area containing the abandoned officers' quarters, soon to be demolished, for industrial buildings. Again, now GPS comes in as a factor here. Okay, this is directly from DARPA's website, 2007. It's a report building on the success of the 2004 and 2005 Grand Challenges. The DARPA Urban Challenge required teams to build an autonomous vehicle capable of driving in traffic, performing complex maneuvers such as merging, passing, parking, and negotiating intersections. As the day wore on, it became apparent to all that this race was going to have finishers. At 1:43 p.m., Boss, the entry of the Carnegie Mellon team, Tartan Racing, crossed the finish line with the runtime just over 4 hours. 19 minutes later, Stanford University's entry junior crossed the finish line. It was a scene that would be repeated 4 more times as 6 robotic vehicles eventually crossed the finish line, an astounding feat for the teams and proving to the world that autonomous urban driving could become a reality. This is back in 2004 and 2005. Look where we are now. DARPA led us here. So this is an independent sentient world simulation, the mirror that watches back. You've got to understand, if I go back to the beginning of this, it'll be pretty boring reading. And where we are now, this is, again, an independent journalism, but it's extremely accurate from what I just skimmed through here. And I'll read to you: A Scroll of Synthetic Souls, Predictive Control, and the War for the Real. What is the Sentient World Simulation? Sentient World Simulation is a continuous real-time mirror of global activity, a military-grade synthetic twin of the entire planet. Its purpose: to model, predict, and influence human behavior at the individual, community, and societal levels. Influence is the key word there. At its core, Sentient World Simulation was not just a map. It is an interactive digital consciousness fed by data. That's biometric records. If you wear a smartwatch, that's your heart rate, your cortisol levels, your twitches, right? It's everything. It's everything. So social media feeds, that'd be your facial recognition, the things you like, love, hate, dislike, whatever. Psychological profiles, so the computer is recognizing who you are, how you think, what you think. EMF and neural response patterns. This would work into your child's Xbox video games. Just the level of questions that you ask an AI model, right? And then with the influence of graphene in your body, even more modulatable. So if you've got an entire military that is vaccinated with graphene, then you've got a more modulatable population of people to deal with, right? With EMF, right? So EMF and neural response patterns to reroute what's going on in the brain using Tesla phoresis. They're rerouting neural pathways, changing the way that people function, the way that people think naturally. They do this with nano ribbons, nano quantum dots, they call them. There's a whole range of these things I'll probably end up getting into here. So, the W band, if you ever watched Sabrina Wallace, she brings this up regularly. That is the Wide Body Area Network and Intra-Body Telemetry. Anything in the space of 6 feet around you, if you're not vaccinated, anything within the 30-foot radius if you are vaccinated. That is something that is, it's a node that picks up other nodes in relation to its proximity to them, how they interact with each other. financial transactions and location data, satellite, Internet of Things, and health surveillance systems. It contains avatars of every human being, driven by algorithms, behavioral models, and AI-based emotion engines. It does not simply observe, it tests, it triggers, and it adjusts. Think about scrolling through Facebook and you see a post that you absolutely hate, a person you don't want to see anymore, whatever that stimuli might be, that is what it's for. That's what those algorithms are doing. They're testing you. They're seeing the reaction, they're seeing the biometric data flare up, they're watching the facial expressions, all of that stuff is integrated. This isn't conspiracy theory anymore. I'm giving you the places to look at the evolution of it all. Okay? 2, from DARPA to DODIN. There was something up here I wanted to cover here. Health surveillance, financial transactions and location data. What you're buying, where you're buying it. You go into Home Depot, there's a camera right on your face, there's a chip in your card. There's no movement without being monitored. It contains avatars of every human being, driven by algorithms, behavioral models, and AI-based emotion engines. So what I want to show you now is the process of Teslaphoresis, if you're unfamiliar with that.
What we've designed, and we've done this very, very quietly, but we're glad to now release it to the world, is this idea of Teslaphoresis.
This that you're looking at right here is a Tesla coil that is driving an electromagnetic field. There's a radiant energy that comes out of that. These are graphene nanotubes. Those measure probably 1/10 of a millimeter squared, I would say. They're super, super small. Maybe 1/100th. It's a little fine dust, but that is graphene that you're looking at. It is graphene or graphene oxide, which is an oxidated version or an ionized version of graphite, like pencil point stuff. What you're going to see here is they turn this thing on and they show you with light bulbs. They're standing without any wires attached to the light bulbs in that electrical field, and the light bulbs, the fluorescent light bulbs, come on. So what I'm trying to explain to you here is that once they turn this on, these things string themselves together. And again, at a specific value of radiant energy near you, your phone or something else that's capable of propagating a wavelength, that would be Wi-Fi and Bluetooth. Training the mind physically by recreating new neural pathways. What is going to be most conductive or least conductive in the brain is modulatable right here with this technology.
Which is a discovery we made several years ago, and we've been developing it. And Teslaphoresis is, the simplest way to understand it is self-assembly at a distance, just long-distance assembly of materials. And what we did was, because we're at Rice, we had plenty of nanotubes around, so we decided to use nanotubes. And what we discovered was that these nanotubes can actually string together and form wires by themselves under this electric field.
This fundamental idea of force acting at a distance, that you can have, instead of, when you normally build circuits and things like that, you have to have physical contact. Now we're talking about building circuits without actually touching them.
All right, we're just dispersing this. Power on. I realize.
Now keep in mind here that they're using a water or a liquid as a medium for this stuff to string itself together in, which makes it more buoyant, floatable, movable, less density, less drag, as if it were in a dry environment like they're about to show now. The dry environment is just air. We'll start to see there are sparks here. Those sparks happen when there's too much electromagnetic energy near those little microscopic nodes. They explode. It's not so much that it's combustible, but it ionizes to the point of like burning a log, and ash is created from that, but there's a spark necessary. It's the same concept here. An electromagnetic field drives the electrons out of the material, and this is where it would ionize because it's such a thin material. So during all of the COVID stuff, people were getting all these clots in their blood. What were the clots from? Biological material being ignited inside the body, which would create a gelatinous structure. So this is just my idea of how that works within the body. If you have something combustible that is sparking, generating heat within your body, why do I have COVID over and over and over again when I keep getting vaccinated to save myself from it? This is why.
That a Tesla coil could actually do this if you designed it in a way to create a very strong force field in front of it. And so that was the engineering aspect of it. And then once I designed the machine, then all sorts of discoveries started falling out of it.
Oh, that was a good one.
Tesla Phoresis is one of those things, it's a project that there are just so many avenues, so many things that I think you can do with it. Not just making conductive wires, but taking it in so many different places, not only just...
There's a big thing going on here, all right? Why are there a red and a blue diode, a light-emitting diode? Why blue and red? That's what your body is most responsive or reactive to. So if I block out the sun using graphene clouds and you are only subject to blue light, all that has a lot to do with, I think they call it, so it's your photoreceptors. It's the way that your brain works, red light or blue light. In those different spectrums of light, these compounds behave completely differently. So you need the sunlight. That's an important factor in the way all of this stuff is evolving. You've got to get red light in harmony, in balance with the blue light in your exposure over the course of the day. Watch some of the videos of Dr. Jack Kruse. He's a very smart guy. He's a bit too far into the politics for me personally, but a very smart guy in this regard. You'll always see him wearing red lens glasses. So that is what I think they're testing here. I don't know. But in regards to the way that all of your endorphins and everything else, there's a word I'm thinking of here, endorphins, I can't remember. So anyway, the physiological and electrochemical or chemical reactions distributed by the body in its natural processes from your endocrine system. What glands will emit or put out what chemicals for you to feel certain ways. So they're not only changing the thoughts or the neural pathways, but your ability to feel, the way that you feel, the things that you feel badly about, by applying pressure to the way you think about those things. So what comes in as a key component for me as I'm talking about that kind of thing is Klaus Schwab says, you will own nothing and be happy. How will I own nothing and be happy? We're just going to rewire your brain a little bit here. That's all.
Biomedical and engineering, but taking it into different industries like silicone chips or exploring different conductive materials.
This also ties in just generally in nanotechnology that self-assembly is very big. That is, if you can get things to build themselves, just as in biology, we build ourselves.
When my son saw it, he called them webs. You know, he thought it was like Spider-Man shooting webs out. And it really is. It's very much like a web sort of stringing out together. And that was a surprising finding. And the physics of that is actually a lot richer than what we had originally thought. So there is new science coming out of this as we go.
So again, back to Normie page here for you, and that is Wikipedia. You're going to have to see how these are implemented, all right? So this is how they sell it. The Terrorist Information Awareness Program. This is how it started. That's how it ended. Total Information Awareness was a mass detection program by the United States Information Awareness Office. It operated under this title from February to May 2003, before being renamed Terrorism Information Awareness. Based on the concept of predictive policing, TIA was meant to correlate detailed information about people in order to anticipate and prevent terrorist incidents before execution. The program modeled specific information sets in the hunt for terrorists around the globe. Admiral John Poindexter called it a Manhattan Project for counterterrorism. According to Senator Ron Wyden, TIA was the biggest surveillance program in the history of the United States. Congress defunded the Information Awareness Office in late 2003 after media reports criticized the government for attempting to establish total information awareness over all citizens. We are there. Although the program was formally suspended, other government agencies later adopted some of its software with only superficial changes. TIA's core architecture continued development under the code name Basketball, according to 2012 New York Times article. TIA's legacy was quietly thriving at the National Security Agency. So there you've got two major components. That's the NSA and the DoD, our own agencies doing this to us. I can't seem to zoom in on this photo for some reason. It's pretty weird. So it says DoD and Foreign Intel Community, government collectors, the public, counterintelligence. So it's intelligence, the public, government collectors, aggregated into counterintelligence, then intelligence, collaborative multi-agency analytical environment, access restricted by law, policy, and regulation. So this is what they're moving around. Access restricted by law, policy, and regulation. Law enforcement community would be commercial collectors, would be public and private. You think of the words public-private partnerships. So access restricted by law is counter-intel by law enforcement. Discovery tools, models, repositories. Operations are collaborative multi-agency policies and ops environment. Foreign terrorist threat. Not foreign. That's domestic. That's us. Foreign terrorist threat in the United States. Options, policy, plausible futures. Collaborative multi-agency policy ops environment we just read. Okay, so how does all of this work into our last topic? GPS, track, trace, monitor, nodes, W-band, trackable, traceable thing. Now, as we are measuring all of these different types of technologies and track and trace capabilities, we are entering a realm where all of this information has to be collectible, storable, right? And we're in this big war with data centers and public-private partnerships initiating those data centers. Okay, I'm going to read to you the the Genesis project. Okay, Genesis aimed to develop technologies that would enable ultra large all source information repositories. Vast amounts of information were to be collected and analyzed, and the available database technology at the time was insufficient for storing and organizing such enormous quantities of data. So they developed techniques for virtual data aggregation. Again, virtual in the wireless to support effective analysis across heterogeneous databases as well as unstructured public data sources, such as the World Wide Web. Effective analysis across heterogeneous databases means the ability to take things from databases which are designed to store different types of data, such as database containing criminal records, a phone call database, and a foreign intelligence database. The web is considered an unstructured public data source because it is publicly accessible and contains many different types of data: blogs, emails, records of visits to websites, etc., all of which need to be analyzed and stored efficiently. Another goal was to develop a large distributed system architecture for managing the huge volume of raw data input, analysis, results, and feedback that will result in a simpler, more flexible data store that performs well and allows us to retain important data indefinitely. Transactions, that's everything. You opening your phone is a transaction. Turning on your TV is a transaction. Yelling, talking, speaking, thinking is a transaction. Emotional responses to things is a transaction. Aggregatable data, all of that. Worldwide distributed databases, complex queries, automated data repositories, collaborative multi-agency analytical environment. Multi-agency analytical environment that includes the public-private partnerships. Our government in tandem with the corporate entities that steer it. So now you've got to ask yourself, what exactly is a terrorist? Is it a domestic terrorist that doesn't want to be ruled over by someone that has all of this data over them, the way that they move, how they're allowed to move, all of that data? So this is how it is presented by our own White House. The Comprehensive National Cybersecurity Initiative. Keep in mind, the Cybersecurity Initiative, I think it's like all of the cybersecurity startups, all of them privately held, are owned by Israel or Israeli-friendly companies. Not just friendly, but Israeli-funded or Israel loyal. So that would be anybody holding a religion other than that which is in the United States, across multiple populations. So the loyalty is to that sect of religion or that place of the home of that religion. And that supersedes anything governmentally here. That's the big trick being played here. The religious and the religious imposter. So, the Comprehensive National Cybersecurity Initiative, President Obama has identified cybersecurity as one of the most serious economic and national security challenges we face as a nation, but one that we as a government or as a country are not adequately prepared to counter. Shortly after taking office, the President therefore ordered a thorough review of federal efforts to defend the United States information and communications infrastructure and the development of a comprehensive approach to securing America's digital infrastructure. In May of 2009, the President accepted the recommendations of the resulting cyberspace policy review, including the selection of an, probably not going to read all this because that's pretty boring stuff. So, mutually reinforcing initiatives with the following major goals designed to help secure the United States in cyberspace. Okay? To establish a front line of defense against today's immediate threats by creating or enhancing shared situational awareness of network vulnerabilities. Vulnerabilities. I'm very sorry, it's 3 a.m. And events with the federal government, and ultimately with state, local, and tribal governments and private sector partners. The big one is always this, okay? It is always this. That is who is, this is Amazon, this is Facebook, Microsoft, right? They put the government desires into private hands. We can't fight the private hands. We can vote out people, right? That's where your so-called power is, but if you don't ever get to see it, or you're neurally modulated into thinking through all the stimuli that you experience that, hey, Obama would probably be the best thing here, right? Because all of the neural modulation, training your brain to think in a specific way, you know, liberalized, you know, or conservative, or whatever way that it's made to sway your approach, and the ability to act quickly to reduce our current vulnerabilities and prevent intrusions, to defend against the full spectrum of threats by enhancing U.S. counterintelligence capabilities and increasing the security of the supply chain for key information technologies, to strengthen the future cybersecurity environment by expanding cyber education, to strengthen the future cybersecurity environment by expanding cyber education. What are your kids learning in school? Common Core math, coordinating and redirecting research and development efforts across the federal government, and working to define and develop strategies to deter hostile or malicious activity in cyberspace. Cyberspace is not the friendliest, as we can see with the censorship. Now I'm going to move into, these are identity systems that are digital in nature, but it's biometric data access. That's for you to get on the internet. This is what the people in Australia are right now going through. They don't want to use their face to have access to the internet, so they're not signing on to digital identification. Americans are too stupid to see this whole thing with the Real ID. This is what that's all about. Real ID is a digitized replica of you that is used as your identity. And then you walk into Home Depot and buy something, such and such did whatever. So these are public, for public purchase. These are your companies. Top-rated software. So this is for a business to buy. Home Depot doesn't want you in their store unless you have Fusion authentication. So if I click on this guy here, Fusion authentication, CIAM platform. Fusion Auth allows you to authentication, authorization, identity management, authentication, authorization, and you can deploy anywhere and control end to end. Fusion Auth's difference. Fusion Auth is a customer identity and access management platform built for teams who need identity to function as core infrastructure, not a shared SaaS service. Fusion Auth enforces access control and manages identity across modern applications, complex architectures, and regulated environments. So what I'm going to do is look up who is Fusion Auth. Let's get to the who is who. Developers. We're going to find right now. Advanced threat detection, biometric authentication, breach passwords, machine to machine, magic links, multi-factor authentication, social logins, passkeys, passwordless login, role-based access control, session management, single sign-on, user registration and login, webhooks. The cloud is where this all happens, guys. So do not use Cloud 10 car wash that uses graphene nanotechnology to coat your car and identify you in that car with your reporting technology phone in hand. All right. Partners, let's see. So we could take FusionAuth and hold on here. Let's see. So we'll do a search on I'm just going to type in those words right there. The Global Digital Identity Index. Global Digital Identity Index. Digital data. Records are stored in a digital format, digital verification, online digital identity, digital wallet, no digital wallet found for this country. What I'm looking for is the financiers that made this other company happen. Cyber and technology superpower. How did that happen? How could that possibly happen when you own all of it, right? I don't see how people don't see that part of it all. It's unreal. So watch FusionAuth partners. CEO Brian Bell joins FusionAuth as CEO. So who is Brian Bell? San Francisco, California. Somewhere in here is Israeli money. You've got to get to that portion of it. So that would be World Economic Forum friendly companies. So Brian Bell, CEO, World Economic Forum. I will get back with you once I do a little research here. So we find the company profile. FusionAuth is a Series C company based in Denver, United States, founded by Brian Pontarelli. It operates as a solution for implementation of authentication, authorization, and user management. We've been through all that. Company details, solution for implementation, Location, Denver. Funding and investors. Access funding benchmarks and valuations. I would have to sign up in order to find that out. Not fair. Investors. Explore women's companies that raise funding recently. So this is a $65 million startup. Where did all that money come from? $65 million right there, right? Fusion Auth, BlackRock. Let's see. So again, we've got Blackstone buying up all of the land around us, which is a 1,200 acre data center that they're working on getting in place right now around me. Fusion Auth documentation, lifecycle, Amazon Bedrock, Agent Core. So Amazon can be configured as an outbound resource credential provider for Agent Core identity. This allows your agents to authenticate users through Fusion Auth. All right, so the people who are driving the Amazon trucks, constant camera surveillance. There's a camera in their truck that notifies, that's AI driven, by the way, that monitors their face, their behavior. If their head nods too far forward, are you sleeping? You're not registered at work right now. All these different kinds of things. The vehicle will shut down, won't move, won't allow them to drive any further, etc. Right? But they will get taken out of their job by AI. Right? They lose their job for driving differently than someone else, just say, you know. But it's probably most likely a BlackRock. I would say it's a BlackRock startup. So developers, these are tricky to find. They're tricky. So they cover their tracks a lot. When BlackRock is in Fusion Auth, major shareholder. Can't think about how to details. Was I just on this? I was just on this one. Company profile, valuation, funding, and investors by PitchBook. Cloudflare, verification. Let me see if I can find it. It's got to be here. It'll be here. I'm sure of it. All these people, you're giving $65 million to a company to do this stuff in 2018. You know, these are just a random one that I picked. But you can do this type of research on your own. Find these types of things. I just wanted to lay out the beginning. This will be part one. I'll do another video on the completion of the Smart City Agenda tomorrow. I know this got kind of boring and a little bit through here, but I'm trying to lay the groundwork so you understand where it began and how it's evolving, where we're at exactly right now with the use of graphene, with the use of infrared technologies around us built into our phones and our TV, remote control infrared, and the infrared on the back of a backup camera on a car, what face is behind that car. All these things are critical in understanding the reality of the world that we are in right now. And if you don't want AI to be running all of that, there's one thing that needs to be stopped, and that would be distribution of graphene. That's the physical membrane holding the physical world, the real world, into the digital. That's the bridge, is graphene. So again, now I'll get into this later in part two, but this is over an hour now. I'm an hour and 10 minutes, and I didn't want to go this long. So I hope you stuck with me through the entire thing. The next one I get into, I'm going to start to cover what's going on with the airplanes, the carbon capture jet fuel program, how they use graphene in its in its manufacturing, not to mention ground-based fuel now, like with automobiles and whatever else, starting to use the same stuff. Track and tracing electric cars. It's all pretty sophisticated, to keep up with. I guess brand new, but I've been doing it for 5 or 6 years, so I mean I can see through all of it, and there's a lot of other people that can. I want to get other people to see with me, because you'll start seeing that all these narratives thrown by politics and everything else, what they all led us to right now. And that's it. I hope you enjoy.